We descended into the depths with the help of our compact diver propulsion vehicles. In just a few minutes, we were greeted by a sinuous underwater tunnel, its walls adorned with vibrant marine life and colorful corals that swayed gently in the currents. As the darkness enveloped us, our lights automatically turned on, illuminating the mysterious path ahead. The full-face diving masks allowed us to breathe comfortably, yet I still felt my heart pounding in my chest as I faced the cavernous entrance.
It's safe.
Alcipe's reassuring voice came through the earphones just as I felt her hand on my back.
These tunnels will guide us down gradually. We'll descend another 20 meters, but then slowly ascend 25. The cave system itself is designed to manage decompression time perfectly, with plenty of air pockets along the way.
I glanced at her just as she pressed her lips together like she was holding back on crucial information. I ignored my gut feeling. It was too late to turn back anyway. The entrance passage, carved by the relentless flow of water over millions of years, led to a small cave half raised above the water level. There, the water flowed like a gentle river, linking a network of interconnected chambers and passageways, each with its own unique geological features. Some chambers were adorned with delicate helictites, mineral formations that defied gravity and grew in twisted spiral shapes. Others were home to subterranean pools of crystal-clear water, their depths harboring unique aquatic ecosystems that had adapted to life in the perpetual darkness. Bastian and I exchanged a knowing glance as we both realized that the naive balneological illustrations of the Voynich Manuscript were coming to life right in front of our very eyes. Frills of swirling coral along the walls of the chambers gave it a biological quality akin to the walls of a womb. I giggled like an intoxicated schoolgirl. I get a feeling we should be naked for this ritual. Bastian snorted.
I knew we'd eventually agree on something.
His voice trembled, as if he were using humor to hide his nervousness. As we emerged from a long underwater tunnel into a small pocket of air, I gasped, finally able to breathe without the constriction of the diving mask. The cave's rocky walls glistened with moisture, and the sound of our breathing echoed in the confined space. Alcipe, her expression grave, gathered us close.
Listen carefully. The next part of the cave system is extremely narrow and completely submerged. The conditions are incredibly challenging, even for experienced divers.
I felt a knot of fear tighten in my stomach, and I could see the apprehension in Bastian's eyes. Alcipe continued, her gaze steady.
The safest way for our team to guide you through to the womb is for you to drink an elixir. It contains a very small quantity of psychedelics, designed to help you remain calm and relaxed during the journey.
My heart skipped a beat, and I blurted out the first thought that came to mind. Kekion? Alcipe nodded, a flicker of amusement in her eyes.
Yes, but don't worry. The quantity of the key drugs is so minuscule that it would be considered homeopathy. This elixir has been carefully crafted by the Order's expert herbalists and has been tried and tested on our women for centuries. You have nothing to fear.
Tested on women?
Bastian let out a nervous laugh, his voice echoing off the cave walls.
Well, bottoms up, I guess. When in Rome, right?
I reached for his hand. Are you sure about this, Bass? Agnes, He hesitated for a moment.
We've come this far,
he said, his voice sounding more confident than he looked.
We can't turn back now. Not when we're so close to the truth.
Alcipe handed each of us a small vial filled with a dark, viscous liquid. I sniffed it cautiously, detecting hints of honey and herbs beneath the pungent aroma. With a last nervous glance at my companions, I tipped the contents into my mouth and swallowed. As we prepared to continue our journey, Alcipe offered a reassuring smile.
Don't worry about the return trip. The cave system has a natural underwater river that flows toward the shallow sea, just a few strokes from the sandy beach. It's like a gentle conveyor belt, pushing you along with minimal effort. You'll be able to navigate the passage easily, even without the elixir.
The drink was sweet and thick, coating my tongue and throat as it went down. Almost immediately, I felt a warmth spreading through my body, a sense of calm and euphoria that seemed to emanate from my very core. The cave walls began to shimmer and dance, and I found myself giggling uncontrollably.
Whoa, this is some good shit.
As the elixir took hold, I felt my fears and doubts melting away, replaced by a sense of invincibility and wonder. When Alcipe's team helped us back into our diving gear, I barely noticed the weight of the equipment or the chill of the water. I was lost in a haze of color and sensation, my mind drifting on currents of pure bliss. Bastian's eyes were wide and glassy as he leaned heavily against me.
I feel like I'm floating,
He whispered, his breath hot against my ear. The journey through the narrow, submerged passages was a blur of light and shadow, of twisting tunnels and shimmering bubbles. I had no sense of time or distance, only the vague awareness of being propelled forward by some unseen force. At one point, I thought I saw strange, luminescent creatures swimming alongside us, their forms shifting and changing in the darkness. But then they were gone, and I was left wondering if they had ever been there at all. As we progressed through the caves, Bastian's demeanor began to shift. He started trembling, his eyes darting around frantically as if he were seeing things that weren't there. His breathing became erratic, and he muttered incoherently under his breath. I glanced at him, momentarily concerned, but the effects of the elixir quickly pulled me back into a state of blissful intoxication. The cave walls pulsed with vibrant colors, and I felt as if I were floating through a kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Lost in my own euphoric experience, I briefly noticed as Alcipe guided a shaking, disoriented Bastian through the narrow passages. When we finally emerged into the vast chamber of the womb, I was still in a state of mild intoxication, my senses heightened and my mind slightly fuzzy. I gazed in wonder at the soaring ceiling, at the intricate patterns of the stalactites and stalagmites that adorned the walls. The space seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if the very stone were breathing. I turned to see Bastian, his eyes wide with terror at whatever visions plagued his mind. He reached out to touch one of the glistening formations, his fingers trembling slightly.
Is this horror real?
He whispered, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. I shook my head. I don't know, but it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. As we made our way further into the chamber, I became aware of the presence of others, a large group of women seated in an amphitheater carved into the rock. At the center of the group stood Dr. Emily Hathaway, her face lit with a fierce, almost feverish intensity. As we approached, Alcipe rushed forward, her eyes shining with emotion. The two women embraced passionately, their lips meeting in a tender, lingering kiss that spoke volumes about their relationship. After a long moment, they pulled apart, their hands still intertwined. Emily turned to face us, her gaze sweeping over Bastian's shivering form before settling on me.
You made it. The womb of the goddess is right under the Elefinici Peninsula, but we only allow initiates to access it by sea to keep its above-ground entrance secret.
I nodded, my mind still reeling from the effects of the elixir and the sheer magnitude of our surroundings. The air within the womb was surprisingly fresh and breathable, thanks to a complex system of natural ventilation. Thin fissures in the rock allowed sunlight to filter through, illuminating the space with a soft, ethereal glow. As I turned to take in more of the chamber, my gaze fell upon the fossilized bones of a massive creature, possibly the largest bull I had ever seen. I blinked, wondering if my drug-addled mind was playing tricks on me. But no, the bones were real, a tangible reminder of the ancient mysteries that lay hidden within this sacred space. I reached out to steady myself against the cave wall, my fingers brushing against the cool, damp stone. In that moment, I felt a surge of connection to the generations of women who had come before me, to the secrets and the wisdom that had been passed down through the ages. It was only then that I noticed Bastian, curled up against the cave wall, shaking and retching. The effects of the Kikion had clearly taken a toll on him, plunging him into a nightmare realm of his own fears and demons. I felt a pang of guilt for not being more attentive to his distress, but the lingering effects of the elixir made it difficult to focus on anything beyond the wonders that surrounded us.